Hi guys, today I'll take you through a quick lesson of ship handling, and particularly we'll talk about maneuvering when approaching a pilot station. So today's topic is under ship handling and maneuvering when approaching a pilot station. Alright, so we'll start with when voyage planning is done, it must include planning of passage in pilotage waters also. Passage planning should be from berth to berth. It must include maneuvering when approaching the pilot station. Maneuvering in pilot station has four segments: appraisal, planning, execution, and monitoring. Now you must have heard of these four stages also in a normal passage plan. It's the same even when you are approaching a pilot station. But the passage plan doesn't stop once you pick up a pilot. That is the point here. Alright. So the first stage is about appraisal stage. So the appraisal stage basically focuses on collection of data. How can we collect data? Well, there are many sources, of course, these days, and you have an example being ALRS volume 6, which is Almiralty list of radio signals volume 6, which deals with information regarding pilot services, and VTS, etc. VTS stands for vessel traffic services. So ALRS, although is very user friendly, information in it may be obsolete as they are not updated frequently. Now if you have seen or if you have observed on the ship, a new edition of ALRS comes in every year, but during that time there could be some information which may have become obsolete. That is why when you are collecting information, it is very essential that you verify the information from as many sources as possible. I have listed some of the sources here. You may have access to more, then please collect or use all the sources that you can to collect the information about pilotage or VTS services or port services. So the other sources are sailing directions, guide to port entry, navigational warnings, large scale charts of approaches, old logbooks if passage plan was done earlier. Now this is one of the most important things. If you can access the old logbooks, not very old but recently old, then those logbooks can provide you with really good information. You can also in fact talk to ships that are going to that direction. These are all informal sources of information, but you can talk to them about finding out more information or what are the sources that you can use to find more information. Additionally, you can also contact the shipping agent to get any information that you may not be very sure of. Then you should also be using current and tide tables as well as weather reports. Alright, so these are all the different sources, and there may be more, I'm sure, on your ship. You have some of the ships these days have internet facilities available, but I'm assuming that not all ships have internet facilities. So in that case, of course, you have enough publications so that you can verify the information before you start planning the passage for the pilot station. So the appraisal stage consists of data collection. Then we have the planning stage. Now the planning stage here should be carried out with respect to the vessel's maneuvering characteristics. When we say vessel's maneuvering characteristics, we basically mean the turning circle diagrams, as well as stopping distances, and if any other diagrams are available on your ships. Alright, then we also take into account with respect of the current and the wind directions which will be prevailing at the pilot station during that time. So many officers underestimate understanding the turning circle diagrams and stopping distances, but it is essential that you take these into account when you are planning the passage. All right, this also helps you to get good practice for when you become a senior officer like a chief officer or a master, because a senior officer always considers these when they are approaching the pilot station. All right, because the maneuvering diagrams displayed on the bridge are for deep water conditions, whereas a pilot is normally picked up in shallow waters. Alright, because it is very close to the port, it is not as deep as the open sea. So it should be noted that turning circle size in shallow waters can be as much as 3 times to that in deep water, and that is why it is very important that you understand how the turning circle diagrams works and how it can affect your vessel in shallow waters when you are picking up pilot, in terms of turning, in terms of stopping distances, because if there is any delay with pilot or pilot gets cancelled, would you have enough sea room for the vessel to turn back? That is why it is very important. In the planning stage, you should also consider about direction of approach. When we say direction of approach, basically a vessel has to gradually reduce speed to pick up the pilot and also to be able to stop the ship in an emergency. Alright, so at slow speed it is difficult to maintain course if strong wind is on the beam, and therefore slow speed should be avoided at the pilot station. Now you must be thinking, what do I mean slow speed should be avoided? Slow speed means speed at which you cannot maneuver. That is slow speed. If you can maneuver at a particular speed, then that is not slow speed. So as far as current and tide is concerned, it can be taken advantage of. It is stemmed while approaching the pilot station. With the tide right ahead, vessel can afford to approach at a higher speed and thus improve slow speed control of the vessel. In any case, following tide must be avoided when you are approaching the pilot station. Another thing that matters is also the type of ships. For example, a container ship is influenced more by wind than current, whereas a fully loaded tanker is influenced more by current. Do you know why? So a container ship is influenced more by wind. What does that mean? That means a container ship actually provides more windage area. Why? Because if a container ship has loaded containers on the deck, and these days of course container ships can be very big, they have 7 high, 8 high containers loaded on the deck, sometimes even more. Those containers, they provide more windage area to the wind. Basically the wind can act now on a broader area of the ship and influence the ship's maneuvering characteristics. Whereas a fully loaded tanker, because it doesn't have any containers on top, the wind cannot affect it, but because the fully loaded tanker is submerged in the sea, the currents can act more on its bottom and then influence its maneuvering characteristics. Alright. Hence loading condition of vessel also matters. More is the freeboard, more is the effect of wind on vessels, as we have discussed for the container ship. In the planning stage, think about when do you put in standby engines? What is the position of the standby engines? So for that, following points must be considered. The estimated time of arrival, or ETA, notices to pilot station. Initially, the ETA notices are given to the pilot station as per the voyage instructions given by the local agents on behalf of the master. However, this is done when the vessel departs the last port and based on the average speed and the distance to be covered, that is the ETA. However, during the voyage, the ETA may get affected. Hence, when the vessel is within the range of the VHF or very high frequency set, notices must be given directly by the vessel. Requirements are provided in ALRS Volume 5, Admiralty List of Radio Signals Volume 5. In case of no instructions from the pilot station must be contacted at least 2 hours before the expected time of arrival, seeking the following information: pilot boarding time, pilot ladder, on which side and what is the height above the water, pilot boarding speed, what speed would the pilot like the vessel to approach its pilot board, and any other requirements. When we say any other requirements, well, there are some pilots who like man ropes. Some pilots don't like man ropes with the pilot ladder. Sometimes they want your ship to display a particular signal. It could be flags, it could be the pilot light. So find out these requirements as well so that the pilot vessel can easily identify your vessel, especially if it is night. The standby engine position should be marked on the chart, and this is the position from where the vessel is maneuvered to the pilot station. Such position should be well away from congested waters with respect to the vessel's stopping distances. Such a distance varies depending on if vessel is in ballast or loaded condition. From standby engine positions, working backwards, 1 hour or 2 hour notice positions to the engine room can be marked on your charts. Within this notice time, the engine room gets sufficient notice to reduce the RPM and prepare the vessel for maneuvering. Trying out of machinery is another essential stage of the planning stage, in which bridge controls should be tried out soon after standby engine. What does that mean? That means the telegraph movement. So when you give telegraph movements from the bridge, it should correspond with the movement that the engine room is receiving in the engine room. Alright, so it must include main engine and steering controls. The main engine, the auxiliary engine, and some captains also like to try out the emergency steering mode before the vessel reaches the pilot station. Make sure that you of course put the vessel on hand steering, or at least you try out the hand steering, and make both anchors ready for letting go. You can ask the chief officer and the bosun to go forward and prepare the anchor for letting go. Various stages of engine movement to be tried out as well, especially a stern movement. A stern movement should be tried out, and this should be logged in the bridge logbook, because tomorrow if your vessel goes into the berth and for some reason the stern movement fails and the ship lands into an accident or an incident or causes damage to the port or to its own ship, at least you have the legal document to prove that the engine movement was working before you arrived at the pilot station. What you see here above the drawing, I'm just trying to show you here how the vessel normally approaches if there is wind from the forward. So having wind or current from the forward helps you to maneuver your vessel, especially if you are approaching at slightly higher RPM at which you can maneuver the vessel. At very slow RPM, it sometimes becomes very difficult for the ship to be maneuvered. Make sure you reach the pilot station on time provided by the pilot station. Do not reach much before. It is not safe to reach much earlier, because if the pilot is not ready for you, they are not prepared for you, there could be other ships which are inbound or outbound. It will become very difficult for you to maneuver your vessel in these congested waters. Then we come to the third stage, which is the execution stage. The execution stage comprises of when the passage plan should be flexible enough to adjust to unexpected circumstances if they occur. Just like I said before, basically you must have a contingency plan, especially if the pilot is cancelled or the pilot is delayed or for any other reason your vessel cannot receive the pilot. So contingency plan basically includes where to anchor. There should be a plan where to anchor if the pilot is unavailable, or how to get away from congested traffic waters to the deeper waters where the vessel can be safely maneuvered. Alright, in that respect, you also have something in your passage plan known as the abort point. What is the abort point? Basically, a vessel should not proceed beyond the abort point without a pilot, because if pilot does not board, there may be insufficient sea room for the vessel to turn around and join back the deeper water lane. Alright, so you must have an abort point also marked. If your pilot is not ready beyond the abort point, then do not go beyond the abort point. Abort the passage there and make sure your vessel is safely maneuvered into an anchorage or back to the channel. Finally, we have the monitoring stage. The monitoring stage comprises of the certain techniques that need to be employed to monitor the progress of the vessel on the planned track. These techniques may include the techniques of parallel indexing, transit marks, or clearing ranges and bearings. Basically, both or all these techniques refer to keeping the vessel clear of certain landmarks or channels or buoys, so that the vessel is always clear and in the safe waters, and it is at the right depth of water and it is transiting safely. Then you can also use ARPA radars in determining alteration points, and also the use of echo sounder to determine the depths are enough for the planning of the passage, or rather for the vessel to proceed on the planned passage. Monitoring should not be carried out by one set of navigational aids only. Use all navigational aids available to you to ensure that the vessel is on the planned track as per the passage plan, because tomorrow if something goes wrong, then you have the legal document to show that the vessel was on its planned track and still things went wrong. Alright, going off the planned track, going off the approved passage plan can put you in legal issues. Alright guys, so this was about picking up pilot and maneuvering when picking up the pilot. In my next topic, I'll talk about speed of the vessel when picking up the pilot. That will be another topic in the ship handling. So I'll see you soon with my next video. Bye guys.